In this lecture, we will discuss another very famous Indian writer, and the name of that Indian writer is Anita Desai. Anita Desai was born in 1937 and she is still alive. First of all, we will discuss some important facts about Anita Desai's life and her style of writing, and then we will talk about some of the important works written by her. So, Anita Desai was born in Missouri, which is a part of Uttarakhand, and at present she lives in America. And her real name had been Anita Mazumdar. So Anita Desai is her pen name. Her real name had been Anita Mazumdar. And you know that Anita Desai is the mother of Kiran Desai. Kiran Desai is also a writer. And Kiran Desai, she won the Booker Prize in 2006 for her very first novel, The Inheritance of Loss. So you must remember that Anita Desai is the mother of Kiran Desai. Anita Desai is a psychological novelist like George Eliot. As we have George Eliot, one of the important female writers belonging to British literature or belonging to the Victorian period, 1837 to 1901, because George Eliot, whose real name had been Mary Ann Evans, she was also a psychological novelist. So as George Eliot, she presented the psychology of her characters. Similarly, Anita Desai, she presents the psychology of her characters through her novels. So whatever goes in their mind is revealed. So she is also a psychological novelist. She founded one publishing firm. The name of the firm is Writers Workshop with P. Lal. Now, Anita Desai has been nominated for Booker Prize thrice. Three times her novels have been nominated for Booker Prize, but she hasn't won the Booker Prize. So the novels for which she has been nominated, these novels are Clear Light of Day, which was published in 1980, then In Custody, which was published in 1984, and Fasting Feasting, which was published in 1999. For these three novels, she was nominated for Booker Prize. She has won some prizes also. For example, she won the Sahitya Academy Award, which is really very important, for her novel, The Fire on the Mountain in 1978. She has written some books for children also, and that's why she has won the Guardian Children's Prize for her novel, The Village by the Sea in 1983. So these are two very important prizes won by Anita Desai. Now we will talk about several novels written by her one by one. The first novel written by her is Cry the Peacock, which was published in 1963. This is the first novel written by Anita Desai. It is a feminist novel because she talks about women. Most of her novels deal with women, and that's why she is a feminist writer. And Cry the Peacock is a feminist novel because she talks about the problems faced by the wives in Indian setup. So through this novel, Cry the Peacock, Anita Desai, she talks about the failed marriage relationship between two central characters, Maya and Gautam. Maya, she marries Gautam. Gautam, he always remains busy in his work. So he's not able to understand his wife's problems. And that's why his wife, she goes through a mental problem. And what happens towards the end of this novel, that Maya, she murders her husband Gautam by throwing him from the terrace. She pushes him up the terrace, and in this way her husband Gautam dies, and later on she also commits suicide. So that's the plot line of this novel, Cry the Peacock. So name of the wife is, the name of the husband is Gautam, who is an advocate, who is always busy in his work, and he doesn't understand his wife's problem. Next novel written by Anita Desai is Voices in the City, which was published in 1965. So city of the title stands for Kolkata. So this novel is set in Kolkata. So city of the title stands for Kolkata. And in this novel, city Kolkata has been compared to goddess Kali. Do you know Kali is the goddess of destruction? Similarly, in this novel, Anita Desai, she presents Kolkata as a city of destruction, because through this novel, she talks about the life of three siblings, and the three siblings, they face failure after failure in Kolkata. And that's why Kolkata has been compared to goddess Kali, means Kolkata is presented as a city of destruction and failure. These three siblings are Monisha. She commits suicide by burning herself because she doesn't succeed in her life. Then there's Neerad, who is Monisha's younger brother. He also fails in his life. And the third sibling is Amla, who is Monisha's younger sister. Initially, she also doesn't find anything in her life. But later on, towards the end of this novel, she finds meaning. Why? Because she accepts the job of making illustration for the book Panchatantra. Panchatantra, you know, is a very famous Hindu book containing so many short stories. So she decides to draw pictures for the book Panchtantra, and in this way, Amla, she gets meaning in her life. Otherwise, her two siblings, means her brother Neerad and her sister, they remain failure. And Monisha, she goes to the extent of committing suicide. Another character is Dharma, who is the painter. So these are the four important characters. And through this novel, Anita Desai, she talks about the failures faced by three siblings in the city, Kolkata. Next novel written by Anita Desai is by Blackbird, which was published in 1971. This is a diasporic novel. Now, what is a diasporic novel? A diasporic novel is one which talks about the problems faced by the Indians in foreign cities. That is called diasporic novel. Means a diasporic novel is one which talks about the problem faced by people in foreign cities. That type of work is called diasporic. Or if a novel presents the problems faced by the people in foreign cities, that is called diasporic novel. This novel is set in London, and this novel is divided into three parts. These three parts are arrival, discovery, recognition, and departure. So this novel is divided into such three parts. Arrival means an Indian reaches London, and he discovers there that there is too much racial discrimination. Means so much racial discrimination is there. Indians are insulted there. Clear? And then there's a recognition, and at last one of those Indians comes back to India. So that's why the three parts are arrival, discovery, recognition, and departure. And through this novel, Anita Desai, she talks about the mistreatment of the Indians by the Britishers in London, or she talks about the racial discrimination faced by the Indians in Britain. In this novel, she also talks about the Indo-Pak War of 1971. You know, due to this war, Bangladesh was created. So there are three important characters in this novel. First is Adit. And now Adit, he lives in London when the novel starts, and he is quite comfortable there. He is married to a British wife, and the name of that wife is Sahara. So Adit and Sahara, they are married and they are living a life in London. Though Adit is insulted many times in London, but he is able to tolerate all this. There comes Dev. Dev, actually, he visits London to study economics. So when Dev is also mistreated in London, so he complains to Adit that here the Britishers, they misbehave with the Indians. So Adit advises Dev that he must learn to tolerate them. But what happens that by and by, Adit, he loses interest in London, and that's why he decides to come back to India along with his wife Sahara. So what happens towards the end of this novel, that Adit and Sahara, they come back to India, whereas Dev, he learns to tolerate things and he keeps on residing in London. So that's the plot line of this novel by Blackbird. Another wonderful novel written by Anita Desai is Where Shall We Go This Summer? It is a feminist novel, because through this novel, Anita Desai, she talks about the the condition of Indian wives, because the central character of this novel is Sita. Now, Sita is pregnant for the fifth time, and she doesn't want to give birth to her fifth child, and that's why she visits one island, the island of Manori. She has a special attention. Sita has a special attention with this island. Why? Because she spent her childhood there. And the name of her husband is Raman. Raman, like Gotham, as in the first novel, we had the husband and wife, Maya and Gotham was not interested in Maya, and he didn't take a notice of Maya, and he didn't understand Maya's problem. Same was the case with Raman. So Raman was also Sita's indifferent husband. He didn't take interest in Sita's problem. And Sita was fed up of giving birth to children. And though she was pregnant with the fifth child, she didn't want to give birth to the fifth child. She wanted to keep the child in her womb. And that's why she leaves Raman, her husband, and visits the island of Monori in order to link with this island. Later on, Raman, her husband, he also visits this island and requests Sita to come back in his life. And the novel ends when Sita decides to come back to Raman. So that's the plot line of this novel. Where shall we go this summer? Next excellent novel is Fire on the Mountain, for which he won the Sahitya Academy Award in 1978. So this novel was published in 1977. This novel is set in Shimla, a place called Kasoli. And for this novel, she won the Sahitya Academy Award in 1978. And through this novel, Anita Desai, she talks about loneliness faced by women. So she talks about women's loneliness and isolation through this novel, Fire on the Mountain. Now, this loneliness and isolation is presented through two actually central characters, though there are three important characters. The central character of this novel is Nanda Kaul, who is an old widow, and she is living a recluse's life, means she is living a solitary life, lonely life in Shimla Kosholi. There comes her great granddaughter, whose name is Raka. So Raka visits her. Now Raka is also suffering from loneliness like Nanda Kaul. Now there are different reasons for their loneliness. Nanda Kaul feels lonely, or she is leading a lonely life. Why? Because her husband cheated on her by maintaining extramarital love affair with somebody else. Raka is also suffering from loneliness. Why? Because Raka's parents, her mother and father, they keep on quarreling with each other. So that quarrel has a bad effect on Raka, and that's why Raka also loves to live lonely. Though there is a contrast between Nanda Kaul's loneliness and Raka's loneliness. Actually, Nanda Kaul, she likes to be at home. She doesn't like to go home. Sorry, to go out of home. Whereas Raka, no doubt, she is also suffering from loneliness, but she likes to visit outside or in the lap of nature. So there's a basic difference between their loneliness. Now at Nanda Kaul's house, or in Nanda Kaul's house, there comes another woman whose name is Ilatas. She is a young lady. She is Nanda Kaul's friend. So she visits there, and she has a very good opinion about the world. She thinks that the world is very good, people are very good, but she realizes her mistake when she is raped and murdered. So that's the story of this novel, Fire on the Mountain. Another wonderful novel written by Anita Desai is Clear Light of Day, which was published in 1980. And in 1980, for this novel was shortlisted for the Booker Prize. This novel is set in Old Delhi, and this novel is divided into 4 parts. And this is Anita Desai's most autobiographical novel. Why? Because Anita Desai, she presents some aspects of her life through this novel, Clear Light of Day. Now, what is the theme of this novel? Actually, through this novel, Anita Desai, she tries to convey the message of forgiveness. According to Anita Desai, that what is more important, forgiveness is important in order to continue family relationships. You must have observed that in your real life that there are so many relatives who do harm to us, but still, according to Anita Desai, we should forgive them. Why? Because it's more important to maintain family relationship, and that's why she suggests the theme of forgiveness in order to maintain family relationship. This theme is presented through a family. First of all, we have the central character Bimla, who is the central character of this novel. Then we have Baba, who is Bimla's autistic brother. Autistic means mentally retarded brother. Then we have a Tara, who is Bimla's mother. But Tara, she marries to an Indian ambassador, Bakul, and she shifts to America. Then we have a Raja, who is Bimla's brother. So he also sheds off his responsibility, falls in love with a girl, and starts living in Hyderabad. So throughout this novel, we are informed about Bimla, who had suffered a lot. Why? Because both her sister and her brother, Tara and Raja, they shed off their responsibility. Tara, she got rid of the responsibility of family's responsibility by marrying to an Indian ambassador, Bakul, and shifting to USA. On the other hand, Raja, he also didn't perform his responsibility by falling in love with a girl, and then he started living in Hyderabad. So it is Bimla who performs all the responsibility. For example, she takes care of her mentally retarded brother Baba. She also takes care of her aunt. So she suffers a lot. So novel starts when Tara comes back from America. And why? Because Raja's son is going to get married. So on this occasion, Tara, she visits Bimla. Now, Bimla, initially when this novel starts, we come to know that she doesn't like Tara and Raja. Why? Because she thinks that Tara and Raja, they have put the entire responsibility on her. But what happens towards the end of this novel that we come to know that Bimla, she forgives. She forgives both Tara and Raja. Why? Because according to Bimla, family relationships are more important, and that's why she decides to forgive both Tara and Raja. That's the wonderful theme of this novel, Clear Light of a Day. Another wonderful novel written by Anita Desai is The Village by the Sea. Subtitle of this novel is An Indian Family Story. For this novel, she won the Guardian Children's Fiction Prize in 1983. This novel is set in two places. First of all, in a village, Thul, and then in the village, in the city Bombay. Later on, this novel was adapted into a television series by BBC as R.K. Narayan's collection of short stories, Malgudi Days. That collection was adapted into the television series by Shankar Nag. So, like that collection of short stories, this novel, The Village by the Sea, was also adapted into the television series by BBC. And through this novel, Anita Desai, she conveys the message that one should not accept defeat, even if the circumstances are very harsh, even the situations are against you, but one should not accept defeat. And this theme is presented through two children. One is Lilia, who is a girl of 13 years, and then Hari, who is a boy of 12 years. So their struggle is presented. Actually, Lilia and Hari, they belong to a very poor family. So they are not able to earn even two times of meals. And that's why Hari is forced to go to Bombay. So he visits Bombay and starts working in a tea stall. Nearby the tea stall, there is a watch mending shop. So Hari, whenever he gets free time, so he sits there and learns how to mend watch or watches. So when Hari earns sufficient, so he comes back to his village, and then both Lilia, in her brother's absence, she also works really very hard, and she also saves a little bit money. So both Hari and Leela, they decide to start a shop in their village, and that shop will be watch mending shop. So in this way, both brother and sister, they keep on fighting against their situation, against their circumstances, and they never give up. So that's the message of this novel, that one should never give up, one should keep on fighting. Next wonderful novel written by Anita Desai is In Custody, which was published in 1984. This novel was also shortlisted for the Booker Prize in 1984. This novel is set in Delhi, and later on, this novel was adapted into a movie of the same title by Ismail Merchant. Now, who are the important characters? So, important characters of this novel are Devan, who is the professor of Hindi; Noor, who is a famous Urdu poet; Murad, who is the editor of a periodical Awaz. Periodical, do you know? Periodical means anything which is published after a definite period. That definite period may be 1 day, 1 week, 1 month. That is called periodical. For example, nowadays all the newspapers are called periodical, or the newspaper, journals, magazines, they are called periodical. And then we have another character, Imtiaz, who is Noor's wife. Now, what is the plot of this novel? Actually, Devan, he is a professor of Hindi, and he likes a poet, and the name of that poet is Noor. So, Devan, he likes Urdu poet Noor, and he has the desire to meet Noor, and he gets this chance when Devan's friend Murad, who is the editor of periodical Awaz, he tells Devan that Devan can conduct an interview with Noor on his part. So Devan is very happy. Why? Because he wants to see a very famous Urdu poet Noor, because he loves Urdu poetry, and he gets the chance to interview the Urdu poet Noor. So he visits Noor's house, but he is not able to interview Noor. Why? Because Noor has a number of wives, and one of those wives is Imtiaz. And actually, Noor, he refuses to give interview to Devan. Why? Because Noor thinks that this beautiful language Urdu is dying, and that's why he's not interested in giving interview to Devan. Now Devan feels very hapless, very sad, because he's not able to see his famous poet and to interview his famous poet. Then Imtiaz, who is Noor's wife, she tells Devan that she can arrange the interview if Devan pays some money to Imtiaz. So, in order to get Noor interviewed, or in order to record Noor's interview, Devan spends a lot of money. He even purchases a tape recorder in order to record the interview. But the irony is that the tape recorder doesn't work and the interview is not recorded. Secondly, he also pays to Imtiaz, who is Noor's wife, in order to arrange a meeting between Devan and Noor. So the interview is conducted, but Devan is not able to record the interview. Now, what happens in this novel, that towards the end of this novel, when Noor is about to die, so Noor, he hands over all his Urdu poetry to Devan. According to Noor, that Devan should keep this Urdu poetry with him. Why? Because he thinks that Devan can keep these poems, these poetry safely. And that's why the name of the lesson, the name of the novel is In Custody. So Urdu poetry is given in Devan's custody. Next wonderful novel written by Anita Desai is Baumgartner's Bombay. Now, the epigraph of this novel. Epigraph, do you know something written on the cover page? So, epigraph always tells about the theme of the work. So, epigraph is always on the cover page of a book. Epigraph means something written on the cover page. And the epigraph of this novel is In my beginning is my end. So, that is the epigraph which talks about the bad conditions of immigrants, because this is also a diasporic novel. In Bye Bye Blackbird, Anita Desai, she talks about the mistreatment of Indians in London, and in this novel she talks about the mistreatment of Germans in India, because Baumgartner, he is a German man. So the epigraph of this novel, In my beginning is my end, has been taken from T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot, you know, one of the famous modern poets. So it has been taken from T.S. Eliot's poem, East Coker. It is a diasporic novel. Diasporic novel, you know, a novel which talks about the problems of the immigrants, that is called diasporic novel. And through this novel, Anita Desai, she talks about the suffering and the alienation means loneliness faced by the foreigners. As an Indian visits abroad, so he or she faces loneliness, he or she faces suffering. So that is the theme of this novel also. So through this novel, Anita Desai, she talks about the murder of Hugo Baumgartner, who is a German Jew. Some other important characters of this novel are Chimanlal, who is Baumgartner's friend, and Lotte, who is another German's refugee, and she had been Baumgartner's beloved. So that's about this novel, Baumgartner's Bombay. Next novel written by Anita Desai is Journey to Ithaca. Ithaca, is a foreign city. And the title of this novel has been taken from a poem by Constantine Peter Caffey's poem. And Peter Caffey had been a Greek poet. So the title of this novel has been taken from a Greek poet's poem. And the name of that poet is Constantine Peter Caffey. This poem has prologue and epilogue. Prologue, do you know? Prologue is equal to introduction and epilogue is equal to conclusion. So this novel contains prologue and epilogue like GB Show's play. GB Show, do you know? George Bernard Shaw. GB Show belongs to the modern age and GB Show's plays have often prologue and epilogue. It is a quest novel. Quest, do you know? Search novel. So a quest novel is one in which the central character, he goes in order to search something, in order to find out something. So that type of poem, that type of play, or that type of novel is called quest novel. Because the central character of this novel is Matthew, who is an Italian. Actually, he wants to get salvation. And that's why he goes in search of salvation. वो मोक्ष की तलाश में निकलता है. And he comes across a Layla, who is a you can say that a mysterious saint. She is a saint, and he comes across Layla, and he becomes Layla's disciple. उसका शिष्य बन जाता है and starts living in Layla's ashram. Though he is a married man, he is married to Sophie. Sophie is Matthew's German wife, and Sophie wants Matthew back. But he is more interested in getting salvation. He is more interested in getting spiritual fulfillment. And later on in this novel, even Layla, she also dies. So when she dies, so Sophie expects that her husband will come back to her. But instead of going back to Sophie back, Matthew, he goes to Himalaya and starts meditation there. So that's the plot line of this novel, Journey to Ithaca. Next excellent novel written by Anita Desai is Fasting Feasting, which was published in 1999. Once there was a question on this aspect in Master Cadre exam. Question was quite simple. When was Fasting Feasting published? So it was published in 1999. This novel was also shortlisted for the Booker Prize in 1999. However, it didn't win the Booker Prize. This novel is set in two places. First of all, it is set in India, and then it is set in America. It is divided into two parts. And through this part, Anita Desai, she talks about the discrimination done to son and daughter. You know that initially what was done, that son was given each and every freedom. On the other hand, daughters, they were kept under several restrictions. So the discrimination between a son and a daughter is presented there. We have two important characters. First, we have the Uma, who is the girl, and she symbolizes fasting. Fasting stands for that she is not given proper respect, and actually she is oppressed, and she is also not allowed to have good education. So many restrictions on women are presented through the character of Uma. On the other hand, Uma has a brother whose name is Arun, and he symbolizes feasting. Feasting means enjoying, जिसे हम दावत कहते हैं, because he is given each and every right, and he is even sent to America in order to study. So the discrimination between boy and girl, or discrimination between son and daughter, is presented through this novel, Fasting Feasting. Another excellent novel written by Anita Desai is The Jig Jag Way, which was published in 2004. This is the latest novel of Anita Desai. This novel is set in Mexico. And through this novel, Anita Desai, she talks about an American writer's coming back of an American writer's fashion for writing, actually American writer. He loses interest in writing, but later on, when he comes into contact with a girl, so his lost desire to write gets uh, revived. Uski jo ichha wo dobara जाग जाती है, and he starts writing. So important character is Eric, who is an American writer, and when he comes into contact with Emily, who is Eric's girlfriend and a scientist, so his desire to write comes back. So that's the plot line of this novel, The Jig Jag Way. Anita Desai has written some children novels also, novels for children. So these novels are The Peacock Garden, which is a partition novel. Partition novel, you know, a novel which talks about the partition of India between India and Pakistan, that is called partition novel. So this novel is set in 1947. And the central character of this novel is Juni, who is a young Muslim girl. When there is a partition, you know that so many Hindus and so many Muslims were murdered. So Juni, along with her family, she takes a shelter in a mosque in order to escape uh, killing. Next novel is Cat on a Houseboat, and name of the cat is Papaya. Actually, Papaya. She is the. This is the name of the cat. Actually, cat is raised by a family. So when a family visits Kashmir, and you know that in Kashmir, what is there? There are a boat house. So the cat also reaches there, and that's why the title is Cat on a Houseboat. Now we will talk about some of the important short story collections written by Anita Desai. So Anita Desai is quite famous for her collection Games at Twilight. That is a collection of short stories. And once in Master Cadre exam, there was a question on this aspect, that who has written the work Games at Twilight. So Games at Twilight, it's a collection of short stories written by Anita Desai. Next collection written by her is Diamond Dust and Other Stories. And then The Artist of Disappearance. It is the latest work of Anita Desai. It was published in 2011. So these are three very important collections of short stories written by Anita Desai. So Anita Desai is also quite famous for her one short story, and the name of that short story is Pigeons at Daybreak. So Pigeons at Daybreak is the story of a couple, and that couple is living in Delhi, because the story Pigeons at Daybreak is set in Delhi, and the husband is suffering from asthma. And then one day there is a electricity cut. At night there is a electricity cut. So the wife, actually, she takes care of her husband a lot, and the wife and the husband, they decide to sleep at night. But what happens that in the morning the husband dies, but before he dies, so he finds flock of pigeons in the sky. That's why the title is Pigeons at Daybreak. Daybreak means when the sun rises. So before he dies, so he observes flock of pigeons in the sky. So that pigeons, they symbolize freedom. They symbolize freedom from the various foundation of this earth. Clear? So that's the story, Pigeons at Daybreak. So that's all about Anita Desai. That I hope that you will be able to understand this lecture.